remains of our future absolutely depends on what we do now. According to Oceana magazine, approximately 5.25 trillion pieces of trash are in our ocean as I speak. An estimated 17.6 billion pounds of plastic are dumped into our oceans each year. That's like dumping one full garbage truck full of plastic into our ocean every single minute. I was lucky enough to be born 5 minutes away from the ocean. This is a view from my hometown, Ventura, California, which is 45 minutes north of Malibu. The ocean is a sacred place that I hold in my heart, and it's one of the most sacred places I know. I would go to the beach to decompress after long days, to soak in the water after excruciating beach volleyball practices. I went to the beach after I broke up with my boyfriend, after I was told my best friend's dad had suddenly died of a heart attack. I like to paddle out in the water and just sit on my surfboard and look at my beach town from the perspective of the water. Whether or not you all hold the beach to be such a sacred place as I do doesn't really matter, because everyone sitting here is a Pepperdine student. And along with being a Pepperdine student, you're also forced to look at the ocean every single day, whether you like it or not. I'm sure most of you like it and may visit it, and some may not, but you're looking at that beautiful blue water every time you go to the caf, go to class, or go to Starbucks. So we are all exposed to it, we're all Pepperdine students, and it's all up to us as students and as future leaders to change something about this plastic crisis. So today in my speech, I'll be talking about plastic, how it affects the ocean, and its animals in it, and then lastly, I'll discuss how all of us in this room can help this problem. So I want to start off with a story from National Geographic. It's about a sei whale that was found floating down the Chesapeake Bay River, and this was a really unusual thing, so scientists just went to go and check it out. They found out that this whale had died, and it had died from swallowing a fragment of a DVD disc. If you think about the size of a DVD case, and then think about a fragment of it, so this far right image is what the whale swallowed, and then you think about the size of a sei whale, which is that size, it's really difficult to think that such a small piece of plastic could kill one of the largest animals in the world, but it did. And people think it's fine to leave their plastic on the beach. It's small, they're lazy, they don't want to pick it up, but in reality, that piece of plastic can kill a giant animal. Aquarium researcher Susan Barco states, "It makes me very sad that a piece of plastic that was not disposed of properly ended up killing a whale. It was a preventable death," from the same National Geographic article. This is just one story of countless number of fish, seabirds, sea turtles, and sea mammals that have been tangled up, swallowed in plastic that's been overconsumed by us and disposed of improperly. A local source, Los Angeles Times, talks about the amount of plastic being found off the coast of Santa Barbara, which is an hour 45 north of us. I would say this is a pretty local beach to Malibu, and they've found an increased amount of plastics off the coast. Jennifer Brandon, a Scripps biologist that specializes in plastics, states, "We barely found trace amount of microplastic in layers from the 1940s. You can easily see the plastic in more recent layers. There's been an exponential increase." So this is just showing that locally this is happening and this is a problem. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's located in the North Pacific up here, and another National Geographic article talks about how the top of the ocean is just covered in large pieces of plastic. And what scientists are now figuring out is the plastics are sinking lower and lower meters below the surface, and it's getting harder and harder to really realize how much trash is actually there. So plastic does not biodegrade, meaning it doesn't just disappear. It gets smaller. It's broken up into smaller pieces, which are known as microplastics. Microplastics make the water murky, they make visibility really bad, but worst of all is they block the sunlight from the algae and the phytoplankton who are trying to produce photosynthesis. So if you think about it, algae and plankton are at the bottom of the food chain. They're the primary producers. And if these organisms can't produce what they're meant to do, it affects the secondary, the third, and the fourth level of the food chain. So this is a really prevalent problem, and it's really disrupting the food chain in the ocean. More on microplastics. They're small, but they're definitely way more harmful than larger pieces of plastics. An article from Flora and Fauna International describes 3 forms of microplastics. So there's microbeads, which are most commonly found in face washes. I'm sure a lot of you know the little exfoliating beads that are used. There's nurdles, which are the plastic pellets that are used in production of plastic goods. And then lastly, there's synthetic clothing fibers, which are made in production of clothing, as well as they're from washer dryers disposed into the ocean. And recently they found that amounts of DDT are in microplastics. So if you think about this, microplastics are getting broken down at the surface, they're falling to the bottom of the ocean. Let's say a mussel absorbs these microplastics, which contain DDT, and then the animal will eat that mussel, and say a fish eats that animal, and eventually we eat the fish. So we're essentially consuming DDT as well as our own plastics, which is quite disturbing. So when I talk about single-use plastics, a good example are plastic straws. A lot of you are aware of the relevant upcoming plastic straw debates. Our Last Straw Live did an article explaining how millions of straws are used a day in America. Straws do not break down, and they have been found at all levels of the food chain in the ocean. So animals are eating them, they're swallowing them, they're getting stuck in their throats, and eventually dying. So I gave you some examples of animals and how it affects the ocean. And you're probably wondering, how do we solve this problem? Well, I have some good news, because Malibu is doing a great job in implementing these environmental acts. In an article titled Malibu Moves to Ban Single-Use Plastics, stated that restaurants were no longer allowed to use single-use plastics such as straws or utensils as of July 1st of this year. So I'm sure a lot of you have noticed Starbucks have been using paper straws or no straws at all. Chipotle has wooden utensils, as well as I know a couple of markets. And some people are getting really creative with this. Robert Morris, who's the owner of Paradise Cove Restaurant here in Malibu, has started using the pasta straw in his cocktails. He talks about how they biodegrade easier than other environmental straws, and also they hold their shape, because you know how paper straws, they kind of get smushy. And he also states, when you're done using it, you can eat it, you can cook it, or you can throw it in compost. So imagine going to the beach, and imagine not seeing it littered with plastic. Imagine not seeing plastic rolling out of the bushes into the ocean, or thinking you're swimming next to a jellyfish when it's really someone's Dorito bag. This is really preventable. Here on Pepperdine, there's so many resources we can use as students. You can join the Green Team, the Net Impact, or the Center of Sustainability. They're open to anyone signing up and joining their teams. So in conclusion, plastic is negatively affecting the ocean while positively increasing. We should not accept this fact. Everyone can help in the smallest ways. You can use a metal water bottle instead of plastic. You can use a reusable bag. You can use metal straws or no straws at all. And you can choose to use products that package their goods in less plastic. And pick up after yourself wherever you go, and pick up after others. It takes one person to make the world a little bit cleaner, and we're all here at Pepperdine for the next 4 years, so you might as well start now. Because our past, our present, and whatever remains of our future absolutely depends